The worst thing I discovered was that my husband's death was only the beginning of my pain. For 50 years, I believed I knew every detail of George Brown's life. Every wrinkle on his face told a story I thought belonged only to us. But that day, standing at his grave in the cemetery, I learned that there were secrets buried far deeper than his body. It was a November morning, and I brought yellow chrysanthemums, his favorite flowers. It had been 3 months since the funeral, and I still felt as if a part of me had been ripped away. I walked slowly between the tombstones, my tired legs complaining with every step. The cold wind tugged at my black shawl, and I held the bouquet tightly against my chest. When I reached the grave, I froze at what I saw. There were already flowers there, fresh red roses still covered in tiny drops of dew. They weren't old, forgotten flowers. They had been placed there that same day, maybe just a few hours earlier. I stepped closer and picked up the small white envelope nestled among the roses. My eyes, already weary from age and tears, struggled to focus on the handwritten words. And when I finally managed to read them, I thought I would faint right there. George, my eternal love. 28 years were not enough. You still live in every beat of my heart. Forever yours, Grace. 28 years. 28 years. While I cooked his meals, washed his clothes, cared for our children, and prayed for our family every night, he had another life, another woman, another love he called eternal. I sat down on the cold ground, right there in the cemetery, not caring that dirt stained my skirt. The red roses seemed to mock me, so vibrant, so full of passion, and I, with my fallen yellow chrysanthemums beside me, felt wilted, deceived, foolish. How did I not see it? How did I spend half my life beside a man I never truly knew? Memories flooded my mind like a storm. Business trips that lasted weeks. Phone calls he took outside, always claiming there was too much noise inside the house. Nights he came home late, smelling of a perfume I didn't wear, but he insisted came from the taxi. I believed him every time. I trusted him. Because that's what a wife was supposed to do, wasn't it? Trust the man who swore eternal love before God. I returned home like a lost soul. My children, Edward and Violet, now adults with families of their own, weren't there to see me arrive. Better that way. I wouldn't have known how to explain what I felt. It was more than anger or sadness. It was as if my whole life had been a lie built on foundations of sand. For days, I became obsessed. Who was Grace? Where did he meet her? Did my children know? I searched every corner of our home. Opened drawers I hadn't touched in years, dug through boxes in storage, checked every pocket of every old coat he owned. And inside a dusty shoebox in the back of the closet, I found them. Letters. Dozens of handwritten letters with the same delicate handwriting from the note. Photographs. Him and her, smiling in places I had never seen. A beach, an elegant restaurant, a hotel room. In some pictures, he wore the green shirt I had given him for our 30th anniversary. He wore my gift to meet her. I read every letter, one by one, torturing myself with each word. Grace wrote about secret meetings, about plans for a future that never came, about how she loved his laughter, his touch, his dreams. The same dreams he told me he shared with me. She called him my darling, my love, just like I did. I learned she worked at the same company where George had been a manager for more than 20 years. That's where it all began. A conference, a business dinner, and then years of hidden meetings. 28 years of a parallel life while I grew old here waiting for him, believing we were happy. Part of me wanted to burn everything, to erase every trace of that betrayal. But another part needed to understand. I needed answers George could never give me anymore. So I did something I never thought I would do. I found her address in the letters and, on a gray December morning, I took a bus to it. 6 hours on the road, my heart pounding in my chest, not knowing whether I was being brave or simply insane. I found her house, a simple but well-kept place, with flowers in the window. I knocked before I lost my courage. When she opened the door, I recognized her instantly. She was the woman from the photos, just older now, with gray hair like mine and wrinkles around her eyes. She looked at me, and even though we had never met, she knew exactly who I was. Grace turned pale when she saw me standing there. She didn't say anything for long seconds. She just stared at me with those brown eyes full of fear and unbelievably sorrow. Then she said, "You're Diana, aren't you? Please, come in." We sat in her small living room, facing each other, two old women destroyed by the same man. She offered me coffee, and I accepted, not out of politeness, but because my hands needed something to hold so they would stop shaking. The silence was heavy, suffocating. She was the one who finally broke it. "I didn't know he had died until 2 weeks after the funeral," she said, trying not to cry. "A coworker told me. I went to the cemetery the next day and every day since. I needed to say goodbye to him, even knowing I had no right to." I wanted to scream, to accuse her of destroying my family even without knowing I existed. But what came out instead was, "Why? Why did you stay with a married man for 28 years? Tears rolled down her face. "Because I loved him. Because he promised that one day he would really be with me. He said you were just companions, that the love had died long ago, that he stayed because of the children." She paused, wiping her tears. "I know I was foolish. I waited a lifetime for someone who was never fully mine." I listened as she poured out her truth. George had built a perfect double life. To me, he was the devoted husband, the present father at family parties and Sunday lunches. To her, he was the forbidden love, the man who showed up on weekends claiming to be on business trips, who called every night when I thought he was just checking emails in the living room. Grace never married, never had children. She lived in the shadows, waiting for scraps of affection, believing the same lies he told me. She showed me gifts he'd given her, photos she treasured, promises written in old letters, and there, in that small living room, I realized something that shocked me. She wasn't my enemy. She was another victim. "He loved you, Diana," she suddenly said, looking straight at me. "I know he did. I read his old letters where he spoke about you with affection. It wasn't an act. He loved you in his own way, and he loved me too." George was a divided man, unable to choose, unable to give up either of his lives. Those words hurt more than any accusation, because they meant I hadn't been enough. That the love I thought was whole was only half. It meant that no matter how devoted, faithful, and loyal I had been, it still wasn't enough to fill him. I returned to my town that same night, but I came back different. I didn't tell my children anything. What good would it do to destroy the memory they have of their father? They loved him, and that love was real, even if built on an incomplete truth. I kept the letters, the photos, everything I found. They are my ghosts now, not theirs. In the months that followed, I went back to the cemetery many times. I always found fresh red roses next to my yellow chrysanthemums. At first, it filled me with bitterness, but over time, I began to see it differently. Two women keeping the memory of the same man alive, each in her own way, each with her own flowers, each with her own pain. One day, I ran into Grace there. She arrived just as I was leaving. We looked at each other, and something passed between us. A silent understanding. Neither of us spoke, but there was a nod, a mutual acknowledgement. Since then, we have kept an unspoken agreement. I go on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she goes on Mondays and Fridays. We've never seen each other again, but I always see her roses beside my flowers. Did I forgive George? I don't know if I can say that. I still feel anger on some days. I still cry when I look at our wedding photos and think about everything I believed in. But I've also learned that people are complicated, that love isn't black and white, and that someone can love you and still hurt you deeply. What struck me most was realizing that Grace and I are not so different. We both loved the same man. We both waited for him, each in our own way. We were both left behind, alone with our memories and unanswered questions. She didn't steal my life. She lived in her own kind of prison, waiting for someone who would never truly be hers. Today, when my grandchildren ask me to tell stories about Grandpa, I tell them the good memories. The laughter, the celebrations, the real moments we shared. Because those were true too. The love we built, even imperfect, existed. The family we created is real. But at night, when I'm alone in the bed I shared with him for over 50 years, I look at the empty space beside me and whisper, "Who were you really, George Brown? And if I had discovered this while you were still alive, would we have had the courage to be honest with each other?" I will never have those answers. What's left for me is to move forward, carrying this weight, this bitter truth, but also a strange compassion. For myself, for Grace, and even for George. This man who loved too much, or never learned to love properly, I'm not sure. I still bring my yellow flowers, and I know she will continue bringing her red roses. 2 women, 1 grave, and the memory of a love that was real for both of us, even if it was never whole for either one of us. This is my story. The truth I learned too late, but that taught me that sometimes life is more complicated than our judgments, and that in the end, we are all just human, trying to find love, even when we lose our way.